Who are the experts in that environment? Who are the experts on poverty? It's the individuals obviously maneuvering through it. I went to a conference about 7 years ago on family violence, intimate partner abuse. And their mantra at that conference was no more about us without us. And that is significant with every demographic we're working within. Addiction, family violence, poverty. They need to be voices at the table. That is when change happens. So that's what we did back 15 years ago with the County of Lambton. They came to the decision-making tables and became a voice. County Council was open to listening to some of our ideas and our suggestions. My boss, Gail at the time, and they took a single mom in our program, single mom in poverty, and had 3 boys. And she would go to County Council meetings and she would talk about what we needed to do differently in order to be effective. So when all that came together, then we started to run with our programming. It has been significant. We've been doing the Getting Ahead probably about 15 years now. So that's the workshop you need to do before you come into Circles. Circles is the program that we run with the county. There's 4 caseworkers that work intensively with families to try to get them out of poverty. There's no quick fix. We know that. It takes a long time to change your future story. And you have to have a lot of resources in order to do that. So that's kind of what we do. We work with families intensively. But here's the thing that we've learned again over our years of individuals struggling with poverty. There are class differences, obviously, cultural difference, a lot of differences in our community. But if you've been raised in an environment of poverty, the skills you need to reach all those milestones in your life, you may not have learned. And I see it plain as day. When I'm working with a family from generational poverty, they view the world very differently than I do. There's a set of hidden rules when it comes to poverty. There's a set of hidden rules when it comes to middle class, and a set of hidden rules when it comes to wealth. We maneuver within the world, we live within it, and the environment in which we were raised. I came from a very middle class family. I came from England. We came here when I was 8 years old. My dad worked at Novacor. My mom was an EA in the school board. Safe, secure. There was no CIS knocking at my door. There was no probation, parole. We weren't worried about where we were going to get our next meal from. My way to education would have been paved. Post-secondary university, it was just a given. It was an expectation. It's the same way I raise my children now. It's an expectation. You go on for further education. I think I scared them when they were 8 years old because my son Dustin said, "Mom, I don't ever want to leave. Can I just stay with you forever?" I was having post-secondary conversations with my children at 8 years old because that's what we do in our heads. We set that bar high. We talk about achievement. Education is the key, and we know it. So the middle class giant whispers, "Get an education." The giant in poverty whispers, "Get dinner." Children grow up to the conversations that are happening around them. And when you're sitting at the dinner table talking about, "I don't know how we're going to pay the rent. I don't know how we're going to get that disconnection notice in good place." If that's your world, you're not having conversations with your kids about future stories or future dreams. They don't see that they have a future story within their world because they're in crisis all the time. And it's exhausting and it's putting out fires. Now, I walked away from my education when I was 16. I went off to a different community to kind of find myself. 16, I don't know, is that scary age for whatever reason. I wanted to duct tape my kids to the house when they turned 16. So I went on a bit of a journey. So I walked away from that education. I always knew I wanted to be in the helping profession, but it took me a while to get back, not until I had those kids. So I put those kids in daycare when they were 4 or 5 years old so that I could go out to Langton College and do my education. A lot of people said to me, "Oh my God, Martine, you're awesome. You have 3 4-year-old triplets and you're going off to get your education. Kudos to you. That's brilliant. Lots of hard work. You're awesome." And I never really thought about it a whole lot. But here's what I know now. I had everything I needed to succeed on that journey. I had the supports, the resources, the networks. I had a partner that was putting them to bed, giving them dinner, getting them bathed so that I could do my homework. I had a circle of friends that would take one kid on a weekend if I had an assignment or an essay to do. I had a mom and dad that were dropping off casseroles so that we didn't have to make dinner. I had 2 sisters that were helping out. I had a team behind me so that I could succeed. Of course I was going to succeed. I had a visa, I had a MasterCard, I had a car, I had a way to get out to Lambton College. 4 or 5 years ago, actually more than that, it'd be 7 years ago now, I was working with a single mom, 2 kids. And she wanted to go get her education at Lambton because education is the key. We know that when education levels rise within a community, so does your socio-economic status. We push education in our program. We make sure we support them on that journey. So she wanted to go get her PSW at Lambton because it's a year program and there's a need in our community. She thought I can get out quick and fast and make money and get a career and provide for my children. This is what her day looked like. And it was like hitting a wall for me. She'd get up at 6 in the morning. She had to get 3 city transit transfers on the city bus because one of her kids had special needs, medically fragile, had to go to Pathways. The other child went to the YMCA because they didn't have 2 spots at Pathways yet. So that was her day. City transit, 2 kids on the bus, snowsuits, to get out to Lambton College, to put in 4 or 5 hours of study, to get back on city transit, 3 more transfers, to get home, to get supper, to get bed, to do her homework, and then to do it all again the next day. That's who needs to be commended. That's the individual that we need to throw every support at so that she succeeds and so that she doesn't say this is too much. And it's opposite. The minute somebody starts to move forward might be the minute that some of those social service supports get pulled away. They lose their drug benefit card. Social housing goes up to maximum rent if they have a job. So we need to make sure she succeeds. And having a career, not exiting social assistance for a minimum wage job, because then you just fall into the category of the working poor. So we really push career. And then we have to make sure as a community, we do everything we can to help them succeed. So this Bridges Out of Poverty presentation that we do it all over the community. We do it with CAS, we do it with the school board, we do it with anybody that will listen, the college. It's mandatory now for every student at Lambton College to sit in our Bridges Out of Poverty presentation to learn the skills needed working with individuals in poverty. And that's because Wendy Asher, the Dean of Human Services at the time, listened to our story and heard somebody speak that hit her heart. And she said, you better believe every student at Lambton in human service. So fire science, EMS, SSW has to spend a day with our team and learn this stuff. We can send anybody away to learn directives, to learn policies, procedures, but this relationship building piece with the families I work with is a skill that we need. I can no longer be the caseworker working with all those broken individuals and I know it all. I don't. Let's work together. Let's get rid of that status. Let's become friends. And maybe we can figure this all out together. So I'm very privileged in the position I'm in. I have a caseload of 20 families I work with intensively. So they stay with me for 2 or 3 years till they complete their college program, till they complete their training program. My colleagues at Ontario Works have caseloads of 120. Some of the systems are broken. They can't be effective in what they do because they just have to get on to the next crisis, the next crisis. So our systems need to change the way they implement programs also. It's almost gone back to social work 101 back in the day, where you would do a home visit and you would have a coffee and banana bread and you would know the whole story. I can do my job better when I know the whole story. But if somebody's coming for an intake at our office at Bayside Mall in a little cubicle with a caseworker they have no idea and have never met, we're not getting the story. So I don't like statistics and data and number crunching. It's not my area of expertise, but my boss, Kim Godden, does. She looks after all that. So we have to report to county council our caseloads, our numbers, how many people have exited. If there was one day that I would want those county councilors, whatever councilmen, councilwomen, to come to our program, would have been 4 years ago now at Lambton College. And you want to know where money is well spent? We had 14 of our individuals, long-term receipt, government assistance, graduating Lambton College convocation. These are individuals that thought they were just too stupid to ever go to school, to ever move forward. First generational, post-secondary. Nobody in their family's ever been to college or university before. So we have to show them the way. We have to encourage, we have to support, we have to set their bar high. Again, we know how to do that in our world, don't we? If that's how we were raised. I parent the way I was parented, generational poverty, a whole different set of rules. I heard some of the conversation about Central and United Church. Our County of Langton has rented that, and we're going to put 20 to 25 beds in there, I think, for homeless in our community. Part of my job recently, the last year, 2 years, actually, I've been working at the Sunbridge Hotel, which is an overflow shelter for our homeless. A lot of people have the misconception that people in poverty, addiction, mental health, it's the guy pushing the cart or the lady pushing the cart with grocery bags. I can't tell you the families I have come across at that Sunbridge shelter. Moms, dads, kids, elderly, breaks my heart. They're in a hotel. They get one meal a day. I have heard some misconceptions and stereotypes in our community that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. They have a wonderful hotel room. They have Netflix. They have a gourmet meal a day. I want to say, come and spend the day with me. Come and see what we're dealing with. So it's been crisis since COVID hit. Our homelessness population, our individuals in poverty. And again, there's no quick fix, but it has shone a light on what we need to do, I believe. So the best way to talk probably about the hidden rules. How long do I have? 11:30. Okay. I'll tell this story about the hidden rules of different cultures because different socioeconomic statuses, because I think it really shines a light on the differences. 2 stories, and then I will be on my way. So a different set of rules in poverty. My boss was coming home from a vacation to Disneyland. It's a middle-class thing to do to get your kids to Disneyland for some reason. We all have to do it. So they were coming back through Detroit, and they zigged when they zagged, and they found themselves in that area in Detroit, in the hood. They were scared. They were worried because it was liquor shops, pawn shops, bars on windows. She said there was a guy passed out in his own vomit on the sidewalk, just past the red light. They were jacking up a car, a bunch of guys. She didn't know if they were ripping it off or what they were doing. Their safety plan was, if they approach us, we're just going to run them over and head back to Canada. She caught out the corner of her eye a little girl, 9, 10 years old, skipping with a backpack, 3, 4 in the afternoon. What was she doing? Coming home from school. That's her world. That's her neighborhood. Think of every skill that that little girl has in her back pocket living in poverty, living in that neighborhood. Clever wit, sharp tongue, maybe a little rough and tough, maybe a little saucy, maybe perceived as a troublemaker. She can sense genuineness a mile away. You have to in that environment. I tell you, the people I work with, they know the caseworkers that are there for the paycheck, and they know the caseworkers that are there to truly help. They can sense genuineness 100%. So think of everything she has in her world. She needs it to keep safe and survive. She takes a step out of that world and steps into the world of education, which runs on middle-class rules and norms. What if she presents that way in the classroom? Clever wit, sharp tongue, a little rough and tough, little saucy kid from poverty. What are we going to do? Your way's bad, this way's wrong. Why can't you be more like these good middle-class kids? Shame her right away because she doesn't know the rules. Make her feel bad about who she is. That's damaging. That's the damage I see. The kids that I work with from poverty, they internalize what's wrong with me. I don't fit. And it's all my fault. And I'm bad and I'm not good. And it's just about bad choices. They internalize some of that. And there's some judgments about individuals in poverty in our community. I still hear it sometimes. Lying, cheating, welfare, bum. Rather spend their money on beer and smokes the cigarettes instead of get a job. They just got more motivated. They tried a little harder. And it drives me crazy. We're going to have our individuals in receipt of assistance that need it. It's a safety net. Addiction is a population we're dealing with more now. You're all aware of that in our community, and mental health. So those services need to be there. But not everybody wants to be in receipt of assistance. I've been there 20 years. I've never met anyone over my desk ever that said, whoa, sign me up. I can't wait to get a welfare check. Perfect. Dream I had when I was a kid. So some of those stereotypes and misconceptions, we need to challenge. We need to point them out. We need to talk about them because they're there. I love the fact that I get to do the bridges work in the communities where community is all speaking some of the same language. And we hold systems accountable. We're one of them. We did it wrong. It's not because we're all bad caseworkers or bad management or bad, we just didn't know. So when my kids went to daycare for a year before they went into junior kindergarten, they were exposed to early learning opportunities. They were exposed to the middle-class world of education at daycare. They had story time, sit-down time, clean-up time, everything. They knew what to do. They go into junior kindergarten, a world that they've just come out of a year in daycare. Teacher in front of the room, just like their daycare teacher. Sit down, story time, clean up time, cover dust and page, here comes the bus, hang up your coat. You get it, right? It was no shock to them. You bring in joy from poverty, has never had any early learning opportunities, has never been in that environment. He's overstimulated in that classroom with my kids. He doesn't know what to expect. He's the kid from poverty. He's the one breaking the rules probably a little bit. Making snuff bubbles out of his nose and maybe armpit noises. I don't know. Joy from poverty, that kid. He comes from an environment of instability, insecurity, midnight moves. Somebody wants Joy's attention. They're probably screaming at him, maybe. That's Joy in the classroom. And he's got a bunch of kids loving him up in a circle because he's a rule breaker and he doesn't know how to maneuver in that environment. What might the teacher be doing? She might be calling the principal. We need a bucket of Ritalin ASAP for Joey. Poverty, ADD, ODD, LMNP, every diagnosis going. We know there's some legitimate diagnoses, but it's overdiagnosed in the culture of poverty. We were going to do a study with Lambton College, then COVID hit and we couldn't do it, about how many of our families we work with do have some of those diagnoses. Hopefully we can get back to it someday. So the families I work with are brilliant and they're wonderful and they're making change in their world. We're breaking that cycle of generational poverty that we can't measure yet. But I know some of those kids sitting at that table with mom, doing homework or going to her college graduation is changing their perception. It's changing their future story. That's what we have to give them back is a future story and hope that things can be different down the road. Everybody should have the basic necessities in life and should have the opportunity to move forward if they choose. And then we just need to throw again every support we can at them so that they succeed. Basic needs and shelter is the bottom rung of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can't climb up that triangle in life to self-development, self-actualization, self-worth. You've done it until you master every rung. And the bottom rung is basic needs and shelter. And I work with families that are 35, 40 years old, have yet to master basic needs and shelter. So with our programming circles, we have 4 initiatives. We have a Monday night, held at Lambton College. We have a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and a Thursday night out in Forest in partnership with Stony and Kettle Point. We each have caseloads of 20. So that's 80 families we're working with intensively to exit poverty. It's changing a little bit at a time. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of resources, but it's getting there. It takes hard work on their part, not our part. They have to do the hard work and they know it. So we've had some graduates that completed the SSW program and now are a caseworker at our office. That's brilliant. We've had some individuals that are now working at CAS. We had the first female cement bricklayer in Sarnia-Lambton. So they've graduated and they're doing well and they're not coming back on government assistance. And their kids in that family are being shown a very different way. So any chance I get to educate anybody on poverty, I love it because it's part of the puzzle, right? And you never know who's in the room. We've had some amazing things happen simply because we're talking about poverty. What we need to do as a community and come together, things happen and things change. Sarnia-Lambton is a very loving, caring community. And I think we have some wonderful individuals, just like yourself, within it and here, and are willing to listen to me today. So change is happening, but it takes a lot of work. And COVID, unfortunately, has bumped things back a little bit. We're still doing our programs on Zoom, just like you all attending today. It's challenging. We've had enough. We're fed up of Zoom. But we have to prove that we can still move forward, even in the worst of times. Any questions? Anything?
Maybe we could stay behind, if you wouldn't mind staying